We have not seen the last of rioting, especially not in Oregon. Last night, about 150 rioters caused damage to a federal immigration facility. According to Portland authorities, police declared the riots as unlawful. The unrest near the ICE building was declared after rioters started throwing rocks and eggs. They also vandalized the building. This is what it looked like. On Twitter, Portland police said, "To those who gathered near the ICE facility, we have observed property damage to the building. Anyone who is involved in criminal behavior, including vandalism and graffiti, is subject to arrest or citation." They went on to say criminal conduct may subject you to the use of force, including, but not limited to, crowd control agents and impact weapons. Stop damaging the ICE facility. This is a federal building. Again, you can't just go out and do this. Individuals were seen carrying pepper ball guns, electronic control weapons, which are similar to stun guns. They were also carrying shields, fireworks, and rocks. Also in Portland, about 150 people gathered at Revolution Hall around 2 p.m. You can see it's daylight out there. They marched to the headquarters of the Democrat Party of Oregon, and they started smashing the windows and vandalizing the building. You could see that in the video. These riots, they seem to just be continuing on. I want to bring in my guest, Sergeant Mike McGrew. Sergeant McGrew, welcome to the program.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yes, you represent police officers across the country. You see this happening in our country with the rioting and people attacking the police. What is it like for our police officers out there today?
It's not a good situation. The pandemic has brought another level of stress to a job that's already has a lot of trauma and a lot of stress associated with it. And then to add in the civil unrest is something that makes it very difficult just to keep people strong and where they need to be. Right now, the law enforcement is being taxed across the country. They're returning love for hate in a lot of cases where people are saying disparaging things about them, but they still continue to go out, they still continue to serve and put themselves in harm's way. And when it comes to civil unrest, you know, there's probably, it's a very dangerous situation for police officers to be out there on those front lines. Crowds tend to get an anonymity that happens, and people will do things that sometimes they normally wouldn't do. But there also are agitators and agitator groups that get involved, and what they try to do is to break windows or to create some kind of a scene where everybody else loses that anonymity and starts to damage property. The officers are out there with defensive weapons. They have the shields, they have the protective gear, but that doesn't cover everything. And there's an awful lot of officers who are being injured while they're out there serving and keeping the public safe.
Not only being injured, you brought up the pandemic, and I think that's something that people need to understand. In 2020, we had 4 times the fatalities in our police departments that we had the year before, because many of those, 1/3 of those, were COVID deaths. So it's not just that you're putting yourself in harm's way with a visible enemy, you're putting yourself in harm's way with an invisible enemy as well. How do we get people to take it seriously that you have to be careful when you are interacting with a police officer? All this spitting, throwing water, these are things that are getting our police sick, aren't they?
They are, and people intentionally throw body fluids at officers. There's a lot of things that happen that expose officers not only to something visible that you can see as an injury, but also something that can be very deadly. And as officers go out and serve, they're no longer just putting themselves in harm's way, they're putting their families in harm's way. So you're seeing a lot of officers and first responders who are living in trailers separate from their house or hotels or whatever it might be, so that they don't get their family sick or their neighbors or anybody else. So they're trying to be as careful as they can to not contract the COVID. But police work is something that when you show up on a scene, you can't always be prepared as well. You know, sometimes you don't have the time to put on the rubber gloves or the protective gear that you need because you're called into action immediately. So there's a lot of dangers that are happening right now.
And I'm so glad that we have you on here to talk about this, because I don't think that we're hearing enough about first responders as police. I think that the police have been demonized for the past year. We really need to get out there and explain that police are doing great work and they're putting themselves in danger. So I want you to explain 911 at Ease International to me. Explain what that is and how our audience can get involved.
It's a nonprofit that was set up to help first responders with counseling issues, to deal with the trauma and the exposure that they have while they're out there serving in a very difficult job. We raise money through the community. We provide a helpline that first responders can call. It's completely confidential. It's not associated with their employers at all. And then once they make that call, they're put in immediate contact with a counselor who is trauma trained, but also culturally competent and able to deal with the issues that first responders have. We have a website. It's 911 at AEI.org, 911AEI.org. And you can go onto that website. There's a video that explains the program. It has testimonies of first responders that have been through our program. But there's also an opportunity to donate there as well.
Wonderful. What do you think has been the hardest thing? In 20 seconds, tell me, what do you think the hardest thing in 2020 was for police officers? There were so many things out there that they were up against, but tell us in about 20 seconds.
The violence increased, but also the mainstream media attack on police officers, people who are out doing heroic acts, tens of thousands of these acts every day that are not getting covered. Isolated incidents have been covered, and there's been a wide brush trying to paint this profession in a bad light. So that's very, it's hurtful. And this is a call.
Sergeant Mike McGrew, thank you so much.